Good morning and welcome, everyone. I'm Todd Sanders, President and CEO of the Greater Phoenix Chamber. So pleased to welcome you to today's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Employer Forum. And a great one for you today. These quarterly forums are designed to gather our members together to discuss strategies and solutions surrounding DEI initiatives in the workplace. And our goal is to help your organization begin to take steps towards bringing DEI practices into your company. The Chamber is doing this along with you, and our committee can serve as a resource to you. That is our goal. I would like to begin by thanking our DEI Professional Committee, as well as our sponsors for the DEI program. Thank you to APS, SRP, the Arizona Diamondbacks, Cox Communications, and Ideas Collide for your partnership, your friendship, and also for everything you do in our community. Now, hopefully your teams have been able to utilize our DEI Toolkit for Business, which can be found on our website if you haven't already seen it. And since these initiatives are always evolving, we are always working on making sure that we evolve with them. That toolkit was recently revamped with sort of a 2.0. So I encourage you to take a look at that. There's some new information and new resources for you as we move forward. Now, today's program is structured both as informative and interactive, and we're going to answer your questions and provide some guidance. We're going to be hearing a presentation by Alison Rapping, as well as she's the CEO of Arouet, and Jessica Bruner, who's the program manager of Arouet, focused on the importance of fair chance hiring, something that we've been talking a lot about lately here at the Chamber. Then we're going to open it up for Q&A and dialogue following the presentation. So encourage active participation, and certainly if you have questions as the presentation is in progress, feel free to submit those into the Q&A box at that time. Happy to look at that. We'll try and get to all the questions. There is so much to talk about here. So with that, I'd like to introduce Alison and Jessica, who are going to share more about Arouet as a business and how businesses can effectively implement fair chance hiring practices as they think about workforce. So Alison, Jessica, take it away.
Thank you so much. First of all, it is an absolute pleasure to be here. We are thrilled to be here. I'm going to start with just a brief introduction of myself. Then I'm going to have Jessica introduce herself, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about Arouet and what we do, give some data about why this is so important, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how we work with businesses to support them in fair chance hiring. But first, I want to preface this by saying I was sent the list of the participants that were going to be on this call, and I was so impressed because these are businesses in the community that I have known since I've moved here. They're businesses I really respect and really admire and would love to partner with. So I was incredibly pleased to see who was attending this session today. So a little bit just about me is, my name is Alison Rapping, and I came to Phoenix about 30 years ago to start an organization called Hands on Greater Phoenix. And Hands on Greater Phoenix was an organization that was about mobilizing volunteers and working with businesses throughout the community to really mobilize for service in the community. And I spent 13 years there. And then I went to help build the Alliance of Arizona Nonprofits, which is now Impact for Good and has just done absolutely incredible work in this community. I am really fortunate to have been raised by Arizona, and I was doing some consulting in the community, and I got a phone call from someone that many of you may know, Colleen Schwab, and Colleen Schwab was working at GPEC at the time and said, there's a job opening at Arouet, and I really think you should apply. And I said, Colleen, my nonprofit CEO days are over. I'm consulting. I'm loving consulting. And she said, just come meet with our board. Let's show you what we're trying to do. And within 24 hours, I knew that I was probably going to be accepting a position as the new CEO of Arouet. And that was 7 years ago, November 1st, and probably one of the most incredible things and one of the greatest gifts I've ever had in my career. I am just so delighted to be here and to be partnering with all of you. And if anyone has any questions after this is over, please reach out to Jessica and I. I would like to have Jessica take a moment to introduce herself, and then we're going to talk a little bit about Arouet and what we do.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Bruner, and I am part of the Business Relationship Workforce Development team here at Arouet. I have I'm an Arizona native. I've been here for the majority of my life. My role with Arouet really is to create pathways of inclusive hiring for a disenfranchised community. And part of that is making sure that the services that we provide are business centric in order to help businesses create real pathways of work opportunities, and knowing that they have a support system through Arouet to help them through that process, and kind of understanding the nuances that can come along with this type of hiring practice in order to build our communities and our economy. So I'm really grateful to be here, and I'm really looking forward to speaking with each and every one of you about how we can help and partner together.
Thank you. And so I do have a question if anybody just wants to answer. Did any of you, or how many of you may have attended our Fair Chance Employer Symposium that we just hosted at the Arizona Biltmore 2 weeks ago? Just curious if anyone had attended that event. And if not, we'll invite you next year because we loved it. So now the next slide, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Arouet and who we are and what we do. So Arouet was an organization that was created in 2011 to provide wraparound service support to women who were involved in the justice system, specifically at Perryville Prison. We worked almost exclusively with Perryville. Within a few years, the organization started to truly be a bit dormant. And so in 2018, they brought on this incredible new board chair whose name was Lynn Oldham. And Lynn was here in Arizona. Some of you may know her, but right when the pandemic started, she got an incredible opportunity to go be the head of all of HR for Zoom. But Lynn hired me. And Lynn said, look, here's what we'd like to do. We'd like to turn Arouet back into what we originally envisioned it to be. I would like you to see if you could do that. And if we can do it, great. If not, we're probably going to shut down. So in 2018, we set out to really sort of build the new Arouet. And under the auspice of an incredibly strong board of directors and a very engaged community, we started to build the organization. And the reason we built it was because we have over 45,000 people in our prison system. Every year, thousands of people are released. Thousands of people are released with hope, with desire, but often without a very strong roadmap for what will be required to get them from where they are now to where they want to go. So Arouet really set out to become that roadmap specifically for women, to help them with everything from wraparound service support, housing, employment, financial coaching, mentorship, health navigation. In my first year, I would go every Friday to Perryville Prison, and I would teach classes on 4 yards. There are 4 yards, or there are more than 4 yards, but we would teach classes on 4 of the yards. And I don't know any of, like, I don't see your faces, so I'm being very vulnerable in saying this, but I would come home on Friday nights and I would sob because I could not see the light at the end of this tunnel for so many of these incredibly intelligent, articulate, and deserving women. And when I would sit with them at Perryville and they would tell me their stories, I am thinking to myself, no one I know could survive what you have survived. Like, my friends have no concept of what you have been asked to do with so little resources to do it. So we really set out to build Arouet as a safe, secure, holistic way for women and their families to be able to engage in the community. And I may start to tear up right now because the picture Jessica just put up is a picture from our most recent Case Academy graduation. So this year we have graduated 36 women from our tech CASE Academy, which is a technical training program for women to learn how to enter into entry-level tech and administrative jobs. And we are expanding that program quite a bit in 2025. So I want to tell you a little bit about how we work, what we do. So Arouet has really decided that the only way we can possibly be effective is to build very strong ecosystem partnerships with everybody in the community that the women we serve are going to need to come in contact with. So we work with over 75 nonprofits. We work with most academia. And if any of you are involved in academia, we are actively looking for opportunities for women to get higher education opportunities or certificate opportunities. We work very closely with their families and their support systems. We do a lot to help them reintegrate with their children and their communities. We work with government. So Arouet spends a lot of time at the legislature. We do not lobby, but we educate about a number of different things. And we spend a lot of time speaking to elected officials about what is actually happening with such a large population of our community. We also are, and probably one of our most important audiences is the business community. And I equate this to say, when you're a young person, you go to school, and the school is the center of the universe. For adults, where you work is the center of the universe. And so we need to not only get women great jobs, but we also want to bring them into organizations where they feel supported and they are building a community. And to me, we have this incredible corporate community in Arizona. I think we have one of the most dynamic, most appreciative corporate communities. And so we really realize if we can work with women to get them good jobs, we can completely transform this experience. So now I want to talk a little bit about how we do what we do, and then I'm going to talk about why it's important. So Arouet really works by working as the participant is the center of our universe. And we work with them on workforce, we work with them on health, and then we work with them on all other assistance that they need. So we help them with financial coaching, employment coaching. We do social events. We do events to help them learn, and I will give a perfect example. Imagine having one kind of toothpaste for 10 years of your life, one tiny tube of one kind of toothpaste. And your very first day out, you walk into a Walmart and you are inundated with hundreds of kinds of toothpaste. Something as simple as that. We are helping people learn like how to go to the grocery store, how to prepare meals, all of these things. And then we work with them on their finances. So Arouet, we are so proud because we have a 35% rate of women in our program that already have a savings plan and a savings account. We have women that are getting loans for cars. We have women that are actively starting to save for retirement. We have women that are actively getting promoted into new jobs. So we work very closely with women to help them with their finances. We work really hard with women to help them learn how to navigate their health and their healthcare needs. And most importantly, we work with women to help them assess what kind of career do they want? How do they get that career? How do we support them? We also have built a comprehensive training program for women. And so that is now CASE Academy Tech. Next year, we are very excited that we are launching CASE Academy Construction. And in late 2025, we're going to be launching CASE Beauty and CASE Entrepreneurship. So our goal is to really help give the women a foundation so that when they come and work in your organizations, they're already more than ready to hit the ground running. One other thing I really want to talk about that is so critical to this is I've been working in the nonprofit sector for 30 years. I have never worked in something that has the ability to impact the community the way the impact of mass incarceration does. But before I talk about the impact, I want to talk about a couple initiatives here that are so incredible. And I actually saw Vanessa from United Way on the call. So I didn't see her on the list, but I saw her in the audience. And I want to talk about this. because JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, most of the banks and most of the health organizations are making really significant investments in this space in ways they've never done before. And JP Morgan Chase made an incredible investment in all of us, but they really made an investment in the United Way to build a workforce collaborative. In my opinion, this workforce collaborative is going to be an absolute game changer, because what has been so missing in the success of getting people from prison back to life is a comprehensive ecosystem of organizations that work together and work closely together and support the business community to ensure people are ready for work. And so what the United Way is doing with this initiative truly, I think, will be revolutionary and will have both a human and positive economic impact on our community. One other thing I want to talk about, because I don't think we talk about this enough when we have the discussion about prison and workforce, and that is the long-term economic impact on the state of Arizona if we continue to do what we are doing now. And this impact is massive. In my opinion, and again, it is my opinion, if we do not solve for this problem, we are going to run into a crisis that could rival the water crisis. Because for every dollar we spend incarcerating someone in Arizona's prison system, which we spend $1.5 billion a year on, we are spending another dollar on a welfare system. We are spending another dollar for their child to go to foster care. We are spending another $5 to get people back to being as healthy as they were before they went back to prison. We are losing money because we have talented, brilliant people unable to contribute to the tax base. So what I really am hoping that as business community and legislative community think about is not just this today, but what is the long-term impact if we don't act? And so I think and I think the people in this community have a real opportunity right now to really not only change the world for Arizona, but to really build a national model that I've been talking to Carla at United Way about this. I've been talking to our friends at JP Morgan Chase. I've been talking to our friends at Bank of America. I can't wait till next year when Arizona is at the national conference speaking about the work we're doing in Maricopa County and really doing groundbreaking work that other cities are going to want to come and see what we're doing in Phoenix. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jessica to talk a little bit more specific. And then we've got some ideas for you. And then we've got Q&A and we'd love to answer questions.
Thank you, Allison. So Allison talked about the impact overall. And so we're going to kind of dive into those numbers in the data. All of this data is from 2023. So in 2023, at the end of the calendar year, 3,298 women were housed at Perryville Prison. Of that population, 13% of the people that were released in 2023 recidivated, which means they returned to prison for some reason or another, right? What people don't realize is that the return cost for individuals to go to prison annually in the state of Arizona is about $230 million annually, just to have somebody return to prison. The recidivism rate in the state of Arizona is quite significant. It's at about 38%. And so if you think about the number that Allison had thrown out initially of the $1.9 billion a year to operate, 230 million of that annually is just to to bring people back to prison. And what we found was that the number one reason why individuals are returning to prison is because there is a crisis in unemployment in the United States as a whole and in Arizona. So as a whole in the United States in 2020, the US peak unemployment rate was about 15%. But for people with a background, for justice impacted individuals, this particular study was about 52,000 individuals who left federal prison systems. They followed them for 10 years and monitored their unemployment rate. And just after the 4 years into the study, unemployment was still at 65% for people with a background. In the state of Arizona, that number is about 67%. In a study that was about the exact same amount. And it's about 250,000 people annually in the state of Arizona that are released from incarceration. And for those individuals within the first year of their release, the unemployment rate for them is 63%. And then after 5 years of being released, their underemployment and or unemployment rate is at 67% in the state of Arizona. And those are numbers that can be fixed. Those numbers can be fixed by creating employment pathways. And that's where Arouet fits into that mark, right? Because what we found was that businesses really want to be inclusive and they really want to bring this talent pool in and have access to this talent pool. They just don't know what that looks like. They don't know how to do the risk assessment. They don't understand what they're seeing on a background check or what the generalized charges within Arizona could actually mean when you break them down. And so there's a lot of unknowns, and it's kind of scary for companies to take that step. And so Arouet, Alison and I meet often and talking about how do we help companies look at their hiring policies and help them identify the risk assessment, identify the knowledge of how Arizona categorizes different crimes. How can we create inclusive policies, review policies for secondary review on background checks that may be flagged, and then what are the areas where it's just too much of a risk for the organization to bring somebody with that type of criminal background in, and creating those employment pathways so that we can reduce this unemployment rate. For Arouet, in 2023, 591 women participated in pre-release services with Arouet through the Second Chance Center at Perryville Prison. And post-release services, 322 of those women came to Arouet voluntarily, right, and participated in all of the wraparound services that Alison talked about earlier. So they were fully engaged with Arouet and got all of those wraparound services. And our recidivism rate for the people that come to Arouet and participate in our programming, our services, and utilize our network of community partners, our recidivism rate was 1.02%. And the fact is that based on the recidivism rate in Arizona, which fluctuates between that 37 and 43%, what should have happened had they not come to Arouet is about 254 of the individuals that we touched at Second Chance Center should have gone back to prison based on the statistics. So we were able to make a significant impact in preventing that amount of recidivism within the people that we touched at Second Chance Center. And also with Arouet, what we have found is that we have a 57.7% employment rate for the individuals that come to us and utilize our services and go through our coaching, our employment coaching workshops and professional development workshops. We were able to place and or upskill our participants by 57.7%, which just means that what we're doing is working and that we can build from here by creating more awareness and bringing more partners in the community into the Arouet model so that we can continue to grow our economy and make a positive impact on not just this population, but a model that can be used for any disenfranchised population in the state of Arizona. And that's so important, right? Because we want our communities to thrive. So I know that I had talked a little bit about who I am with Arouet, but one of the things I left out is that I am justice impacted. I spent 19 years at Perryville, and during that time, I took advantage of all of the education opportunities that were available to me there. I was able to get my associate's and my bachelor's degree through Ashland University while I was incarcerated. I participated in the Second Chance program while I was there, and I also engaged with Arouet on upon my release. I participated in all of Arouet's programming, including their Case Academy. And through that, I worked at a fast food restaurant, making $14.35 an hour. So not nearly enough to survive on, but I continued to persevere through. And through the relationship that I was able to build with the Arouet staff and Alison Rapping, when a position did become available within Arouet, Alison offered me that position. And so I've been with Arouet since the end of February of this year. And really at the end of the day, I know that Arouet works. I know that participating in the programming works, but I also know what Arouet can do within this community. And I know the type of impact that we can have for businesses and participants alike, right? And so my goal is to educate, is to help, is to consult, is to build these relationships and tear down the barriers that seem to be in place in some areas, and build those pathways for success for all parties involved.
So one thing that Jessica did not say that I would like to say is that 2 months ago, we received a call from Director Thornell, who is the new head of the Arizona prison system. And I will make a plug that Dr. Thornell is, without question, one of the best things that ever happened in the state of Arizona. He is unbelievable, and things are going to change under him. But he invited Jessica, of all the people, he invited Jessica to join him on a panel in Flagstaff to speak at the Arizona Chamber of Commerce to the manufacturing group. And some of you may have been at this event, but Jessica and I served on a panel with Director Thornell. And I would say that of all of us speaking, the ones they were probably most interested in were what Jessica was saying. So what we would like to do is take a moment to give a couple, we've got 2 slides of just some suggestions and some ideas. And then I would love to have Todd ask us and ask any questions and anything that maybe we didn't meet. But one thing we were remiss in saying is that Arizona has the 5th highest incarceration rate in the country. So we are incarcerating people at a much greater rate than other states, and we are incarcerating them far longer than other states. We have a formula here that requires people to serve far longer sentences. So we are dealing with a situation that is uniquely Arizona, and why in some ways Arizona has a harder time coming out of this, because we're working with a little bit more of a more challenging situation. But there are some incredible things that we can do. And I want to say, as someone who is a fair chance hire of my team, which next year will be 19, 6 of the individuals on my team are going to have lived experience in the prison system. And truthfully, we would not be able to do what we do without those 6 women, because without them, there are too many things that they understand that help us do what we do well. But let me talk about some things that we can do to take action today. Arouet has produced a fair chance guidebook. We have hard copies. If you send me your address, we will mail it to you. I will mail it to you personally. Please send me your address. If you don't want to wait, you can go to our website and you can download it today. And you can have it and you can share it. And if you want to go talk to somebody and say, hey, I think we're interested in this, you could take the handbook over and show it to them. The second thing is the United Way initiative. And I just cannot say enough about how impressed I've been with how United Way has been with this and how honored we are to be their partner. But United Way is going to bring a number of resources to the table and bring in some incredible people to speak, to help, and to give some guidance. And they are really going to, I think, be instrumental in helping the business community think about how we do this. We also have Greater Phoenix Leadership, which is doing an incredible job by putting together they have a criminal justice and fair chance policy committee. There is also Pipeline AZ. Pipeline AZ, which many of you probably use, has very intentionally created a fair chance badge. And so you can go into it, and if you would like to be fair chance, you can be recognized for that with the badge. Also, we can work with you to talk about ways to have meaningful internal conversations, even how to start the conversation, depending on what kind of business you're in. But if you just even wanted to talk to us about maybe some talking points about what do we have to think about, like what risk management things do we have to think about, what OSHA things do we have to think about, these are things that we really would be delighted to help you think through. We also are hosting a number of roundtables. We hosted one last year, and in 2025, we are hosting them more industry specific. So we're going to be hosting a health one. We're going to be hosting a construction one. So we're going to be hosting different roundtables to talk to different industries about how they can successfully onboard for fair chance. And then if you have not, Jeffrey Korzenik was the keynote speaker at our very first Fair Chance Employment Symposium 3 years ago. He is the head of strategy for one of the largest banks in the country. And he set out as an economist to do the analysis of what will happen to the country if we do not immediately solve this problem. And he wrote it in an incredibly compelling book called Untapped Talent. And I encourage you, it is basically the business case for fair chance hiring. And I encourage you, if you're interested, to please pull up some of Jeff's YouTube, some of his presentations, or just pick up the book. It is incredible. I'm a big fan of Jeff's. Then the last thing that we're going to do before we turn it back over to Todd is just give a couple suggestions. So basically, these are just some reasons why. And I don't know that I'm going to read all of these, but I'm just going to give one reason why. If we have 25% of Arizona's population having some impact of the justice system, some criminal history, literally something as simple as a DUI, but you can very well not be hired for a lot of jobs for something as simple as a DUI. If we have 25% of our population of Arizonans constantly being turned down from jobs, constantly having doors slammed in their face, unable to work, we are not only going to have a significantly negative impact on them, their families, the intergenerational trauma for their children, but we are the largest growing economic place in the country. We are the largest economic base. Our workforce is growing faster than anyone. How are we possibly going to sustain this if 25% of deserving, talented, able-bodied workers are unable to be in it? So I will just say from my own experience, people I work with that come out of prison are incredibly loyal. They're incredibly loyal. They are highly motivated. They are industrious in ways I can't even begin to describe. Their ability to read and understand people and be able to anticipate events and how those events are going to play out. They just have this very keen sense, and they are passionate about helping others and ensuring that others may not have the same experience happen to them that has happened to them. So I will just say fair chance hiring is the hill that I am more than happy to die on, because I think it has, without question, one of the most important economic impacts on the state of Arizona and on the business community in this state. Thank you so very much for having us. We are really delighted to be here.
Well, Alison, thank you for those closing comments, for leading us off in such an inspiring way, and Jessica, for sharing your knowledge and also your experience with us. I think it really sort of helps to frame not only the challenge but the opportunities that we have in front of us as a state. For those of you who are taking part in this with us today, a couple things you can do. If you have a question, you can put that into the chat, and I'll ask my team to alert me if we have one. Otherwise, you can raise your hand and introduce yourself and feel free to ask a question. We want to make sure that this is a dynamic conversation that really focuses on such an important issue for all of us. To lead off, I mean, I think, you know, you've painted a pretty interesting picture for us from a lot of different perspectives. When you think about, you know, a state budget deficit of $2 billion last year and $1.9 billion to incarcerate, to thinking about sort of a culture shift for businesses and a culture shift for a community. Maybe for both of you, what community or what state is doing this really well that we can also learn from? And I'll throw that out to anyone.
I think we're looking at certain states that are doing so San Diego is doing something really innovative, and they do have a fair chance program. I will tell you who I think is doing this the very best is Oklahoma City. I think if we're looking at states that are comparable to Arizona, because what New York does is not necessarily as comparable, but what Oklahoma does, what Nevada does, Oklahoma has really been, I think, on the top of the curve on this, because they're a very conservative state, but they have a real passion for solving this problem. So Oklahoma, and actually, I don't know if any of you remember, in 2019, the Chamber, in partnership with Forward.us, brought them in, and they did a presentation. And what they're doing in Oklahoma City is really bringing together roundtables of all of the businesses and really encouraging them, because the chamber is taking the lead on this. The governor is taking the lead on this. And so they have really done a lot to transform Oklahoma and Oklahoma's fair chance.
And I was a part of that discussion. It is incredible the work that they've done in Oklahoma City, and I think a place for us to also look at for inspiration. Jessica, I actually had a chance to meet with Jamie Dimon a couple weeks ago. He was part of a larger group, and he was really talking about why this is so important. And I think everyone in the room seemed to nod, but there is a cultural sort of barrier here. Everybody can conceptualize the idea that if you commit a crime, you pay your dues to society, but then you're done. That's it. You shouldn't continue to be penalized. Can you talk to us a little bit about how we start to shift that conversation for not only just members of the public, but also for business owners and people that are hiring folks that are coming back into society?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I've got to first say that anyone with a criminal background, it's a life sentence, and it doesn't have to be. And what I mean by that is that, right, we break the law, right? We do something that we're not supposed to do. We go in front of a judge, jury, we get our consequence, our punishment, and that's to be isolated from our community and our families, with this idea of rehabilitation. And then we serve out that consequence, and we re-enter, and there's nothing that can ever prepare somebody for that reentry, on an emotional aspect. I mean, I did everything I was supposed to do, right? I got my education, I participated in skilled trade programming, and I thought, man, this is going to be great. Like, no one's going to care that I committed a crime 20 years ago. They're going to see all of these great things that I did, and I'm going to be okay. And instead, I applied for about 270 jobs, and I had 91 jobs that were rescinded after my background came back, even though I fully disclosed. And it was so defeating, right? And not many people will go to 91, Not many people will go to 3. And that's where that recidivism rate really comes in, right? Because people just get defeated. They're like, man, if the society is going to say I'm never going to be anything else, then I might as well go back to what I know.
Right.
And I know that a lot of people don't have that mentality, but we're already pretty broken. We've already spent time where we have no say so, where we have no control, where we are not anything other than a number, right? We're already leaving that environment, and then we come out and we're kind of still that number. Nobody sees us, right? And so that it's defeating and it's heartbreaking. And I I used to not understand why people kept coming back until I experienced reentry on my own.
People
And
coming
if
back into Perryvale.
yeah, the recidivism, right? I would say goodbye to people, and then a few months later, I would be like, "Why are you here?" Right? And I used to not believe them when they would tell me like whatever their reasoning was, and I used to think, "Man, that's just an excuse." I didn't know any better. And I'm telling you, if it wasn't for organizations like Arouet, I can't say that I would have made it because I was just kept getting knocked down. And I, I know that there's this idea in our community that people who break the law or make those types of decisions are always going to be a risk. But that couldn't be further from the truth. I don't know a single person who has ever left Perryville who said, man, I can't wait to get back out into the streets and break the law. Right? They have this incredible hope that they're going to find one person that's going to give them that chance, and they're going to be able to thrive and make a different decision and provide for themselves and their family and get their kids back and go back to school. Because of my opportunity with Arouet, I finally got to start my master's program at Grand Canyon University, and my first day of classes tomorrow. Right? But I wouldn't have been able to do that with the 91 no's that I got at the very beginning of this process. So I want you to come to the table and let us know what your fears are, where your barriers are, not just your personal, but maybe organizational, culturally in your organization. Just come to the table. You're not going to offend me. You're not going to offend Allison, but we can't have an honest conversation about what fair chance really means if we can't be honest with each other and come to the table, even if it's with a difference of opinion. Right? And you might not be an organization or a company that can hire fair chance based on federal regulations or based on the risk, but you can still be involved and you can still help us move this barrier out of the way in Arizona and build a an build a culture that says it's okay to be fair chance in this community.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. And it's interesting perspective to your point. You wouldn't expect to see someone back and at Perryvale, and then all of a sudden you see him again, and it's that cycle, that continual loop that people are in. So Allison, somebody out there is thinking, okay, I want a Jessica. I think that makes some sense. Where do you start? And also, how do you have those conversations within your organization? Do you tell your team, hey, we're going to look at somebody with a criminal history? Do you not do that? What do you do to protect privacy?
So first, I think the first thing that if you're interested, I think the first thing you would do is talk to your senior leadership just to see, is there an interest in this? And then even to the point when you talk to senior leadership, what is the interest? Is the interest, hey, my son had some trouble and we're going to bring him in? Or is it, no, more a Jamie Dimon, let's look at this? What I would say is it's not something that's going to happen overnight. Like you might hire somebody overnight, but if you wanted to make it intentional, it would take a little bit of time, but you would sit with senior management. Then you would say, okay, what are the things that we have to look at? Like, what are our lines? What are things we absolutely can do and what are things that we can't? But I will tell you, there's almost nobody that can't fit into your organization. There's almost nobody who can. Then when it comes to onboarding, so you would decide you're going to hire somebody. I would say in terms of who needs to know, the only people that need to know are the people that need to know. One piece of advice I would give is that I think the biggest mistake that we make is that companies think that HR is supportive services. And so when there's issues that are really not that there's anything wrong with the employee or anything wrong with their performance, but they have some external issues that they're dealing with, such as afraid to drive on the freeway or childcare issues, that really, if you took that to HR, it wouldn't have the same result. But if you took it to supportive services, like took it to an Arouet. So what we're doing with United Way is really trying to build an ecosystem for the business community to have those resources. But what I would say tomorrow, if someone here is interested, get our Fair Chance guidebook, look through the guidebook, think about who you want to be talking to, get buy-in from senior management. Then senior management can talk to HR. If it would be all right, I'd like to share a success that we're experiencing right now with a company.
Please.
There is a large, very well-known company here in town that is a national company that is looking at doing this in a number of different cities. They actually sat down nationally with their senior leadership and made a decision that they wanted to do this. And they did it through a special program. So in 6 different cities, this company has a special program that is designed specifically for hiring for Fair Chance. And it has been very successful. And if somebody's interested in learning more, I would be glad to have you speak to that company who I know would be interested. If you are a small company, there's not a lot you need to do. You just need to understand with your insurance company, is there any risk? And truly, I have almost no risk hiring someone for Fair Chance with anything to do with any of our insurance. Like there's almost no risk. Then there is the discussion about how do you introduce the person and how do you bring them into the community that you are in. And so we process of writing an onboarding guide to help businesses know how to onboard for that first 6 months to support somebody as they come through. And I could go through far longer answers, but I think at least to start.
No, I think that's a really good point, and it has to be intentional, to your point. So I think I actually had a chance to go to Perryville years ago, and one of the things that was surprising to me was that MVD actually has a call center that goes into Perryville, and what was to your point, what was interesting, that was one of the most successful call centers they had. And at that time, I don't know about today, but they couldn't have computers. They didn't have access to all of this information. They had to do everything was literature provided in front of them, and they took sort of those first level of calls, and they were incredibly successful. And so, I guess my question is, it sounds like that when people are coming out of the system, there are already some skill sets that people have just in that time if they're taking advantage of some of these programs. And maybe Jessica, you can speak to that.
Please.
Yeah, so women at Perryville have several kind of higher end job opportunities within the facility that can give them the employment skills, career skills, and soft skills from anything from customer service to pretty extensive sales and even marketing. IT help desk. I mean, the list is pretty extensive of the types of trainings and opportunities that some of the population have access to. But on top of that, every single thing that happens at a prison in the state of Arizona, whether it's construction, whether it's repair, if that's electrical, HVAC, whatever it is, right, happens through an inmate worker. And so they are working 40 hours a week doing something that is giving them skills. It is giving them experience. It is providing them with the understanding of working within a team, answering to a supervisor, being responsible for time management, project management. The list goes on and on. And so, and that's something too that we also help with that education piece, right? Because most people have no idea what a day in the life of prison is, right? And that's a good thing. what they also fail to realize is that there are marketable skills, there are transferable skills that come with a day in the life of that can be utilized in any situation in any industry. I'm not going to say that they are the perfect employee. I'm not going to say that they're going to come without any challenges, but 9 times out of 10, the challenges that you get from someone like me are not much different than the challenges that you're going to get from someone who does not have a criminal background, right? There are some specific nuances. If I get a flat tire on my way to work, the world is ending. Okay, I am calling, crying. I just don't know what to do in that moment, because in that moment, I'm going to be late for work. I'm going to be late for a meeting. I have this, cloud already hanging over me and the world is ending. Whereas somebody else would just call AAA. Right? So those things are where that education comes in. How do we help you understand why something is a crisis to somebody who's justice impacted versus maybe somebody who doesn't have a background? But other than those nuances that we can help with, you run the same numbers and you get the same result. You're going to have turnover. You're going to have people that, you're going to have huge successes, and you're going to have people that just didn't work out. And that's everyday life and everyday business.
Well, and I think what was interesting when I heard the MVD director was saying that call center had really high customer service scores, and these are people that blindly have no idea, right? Sort of that cultural barrier that's inherent in all of us, that you had no idea who you're talking to, and you're giving them great scores. And so it tells you that block is just a cultural block. That's
Well,
not.
can I give you an example? I want to give you guys a great example. So at Arouet, we have a lot of women that are going through a lot of different things. The women on our team with lived experience, they're going to take calls at 5 in the morning. They take calls at midnight. They take calls at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night. I think what I've really learned in 7 years of having a diverse experience and non-lived experience is that truly, when it comes to the care of others, lived experience people just have a compassion that is because they know what it feels like to need compassion. And so when there is a need, I think that what I have found is not only are they as good, but in some ways they are better, because their desire to have somebody not experience something that they had experienced is very strong.
Absolutely. You mentioned the legislature and the fact that, I mean, it is staggering, the costs, right? And we do a lot of work in the workforce space, and certainly in the K-12 space, thinking about how let's give kids opportunities now so that we don't have to think about fair chance hiring later. Are you all thinking about any kind of legislation next session?
So I will say Arouet does not lobby on any legislation, but we do educate. And so I can talk about a couple things that I think are going to be in play. One is that there was an earned release bill. And I do think that is a good bill. I think the idea of us giving people opportunities to get out earlier, to be able to rebuild their life, is always going to be good. And they have very strict guidelines about who gets to honor those opportunities. The other thing that I think, and this was something actually that Governor Ducey did that I thought was incredibly positive, was the licensing, was opening up occupational licensing. I really hope we see more legislation about opening up opportunities as opposed to creating barriers for opportunities.
Thank you.
The other thing I will say on the legislation, because this,
Yeah,
I mean, I am
please.
very delighted. I mean, I was very honored to have been invited to the White House when President Trump was announcing the First Step Act, and I was there for the announcement of the First Step Act, and the First Step Act was incredibly valuable. But what I think, and as you could see by our event that we did last week, is we had both sides of the aisle at the event. We had everybody. We had about 30, we had a lot of legislators at the event, which really made me very, very happy that so many legislators thought this was an important enough issue to pay attention to. But what I was most pleased by was both sides of the aisle, and there was real love in the room from everybody that was there. I think this is one of the areas in which we can really make strides, because I think everybody agrees that we need to have change.
And certainly at the legislature, there's a push and pull between sort of tough on crime and this idea that everyone deserves a second chance. And the more that they can meet actual people, I think that helps. That makes those decisions a little easier than sort of this abstract notion of a person or a crime. And so I applaud you for that work.
There's one other area in government that this is happening, and that is that municipal organizations are really looking at this. I think there's huge opportunities. Like, I know that Governor Hobbs and Mayor Gay are very interested in this and looking at ways to open up these opportunities within government. And so one perfect example is, if you see, we're going to have a ton of needs in water. And so there's a lot of opportunities to work in water. Wouldn't it be great if we could open those up for lived experience? Also, I don't know that all employees realize, but there are certain tax benefits to hiring lived experience. We have federal bonds that are bonding, and we also have a tax credit if you hire someone directly out of prison. If you hire 5 or 6 people, that could actually turn into a significant amount of money.
Absolutely. There's been a lot of talk about sort of banning the box, and that can be legislatively, or it can be something that businesses choose to do on their own. Maybe speak to that a little bit. What's happening in Arizona as it relates to that?
Now, I would say one thing is, in Arizona, is we don't have ban the box. We are doing a lot of work in expungement. There is an incredible organization called Raza Legal that is out of Salt Lake City, but they are actually coming to Arizona, and they are working with businesses to help people get expungement, even if they're already employed, because there are a lot of people that have criminal convictions for like marijuana convictions. Those are now going to be expungible. What I do think is that most businesses do have a box. And so you will go through the whole application, and then they will ask. I would like to encourage businesses to not do that, because people who you would hire are not going to apply, because even if you would hire them, they are going to immediately think that you have it in the box. They're not going to hire you. So I would much rather employers stop using that and start using it as part of the interview process to assess, because I think they are inadvertently leaving really good people on the table because the people don't understand that they still could get hired.
Well, not a lot of people like Jessica are going to continue to apply. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Obviously businesses love to measure things. That's what we do, KPIs. So how can you measure whether or not you're successful? I mean, how can you tell whether or not this is a program or an initiative internally that's working? And I'll ask both of you.
I'm going to let Jessica start, and then I can go.
So Allison had talked about a program that was started within a company, a very large enterprise, right? And so taking that idea of the people that are involved in this inclusive program for this enterprise know the people that are being hired, right? So they know if they have a background or whatever makes them part of that inclusive hiring policy. And then they're looking at the organization as a whole and kind of this program in the center of it. And they're looking all of the data points as an organization as a whole. And then they're drilling down to the data points, same metrics, right, into this smaller circle in the middle, and then they're comparing the two outwards, right? And I know that that's kind of ambiguous in the explanation, but basically, if you can, as a company, sit down and have an actual conversation about what are the things that you already face with your workforce? What are the turnover rates for your onboarding? What are the costs? What are the everyday issues that you face as an HR department, as a hiring manager, as a department, or as an organization as the whole with your workforce? And if you can have that data set, and then you decide to build out a program where it's this fair chance, even if it's a pilot program, right, where you're going to build out this inclusive program. And only this executive board knows that this program is in place, and whoever HR is, right? And everybody else is oblivious to it. You can then take those initial numbers that you gathered for your company as a whole and compare them on a smaller scale to the pilot program and see what the difference is. Right? I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what the difference will be for your company. I can tell you what we've heard, the feedback that we've received, right, is that retention is 30% higher. Tardiness or late or sick call outs are lower, right? But that's company specific. So I really think that it's the responsibility of the company to understand what they're already faced with their workforce, what those numbers are, and then looking at the data from a special program, again, whether it's pilot or it's permanent, and to be able to understand what that impact is really on a whole.
Thank you, Jessica. Alice, anything to add?
I'm going to give you 4 things, literally 4 things. There are 4 things that you look at. If this needle's being moved, you've been successful. KPIs. Are they meeting the KPIs and are they performing? 2, longevity. Are they staying? 3, merit and performance. Are they getting performance increases for good performance? And 4, mobility. Are they getting promoted? If you're seeing those trend lines positive over 5 years, you've been successful.
Thank you for that. It looks like we don't have any additional questions. I'd like to give you both a chance for some final remarks. Alison, I'll start with you.
I just want to say how delighted we are to be a part of this. I hope that any of you on the call will reach out to us directly. We would love to have you. We would love to have you come and visit our office, see some of the things that we're doing. We would love to come meet with you at your office. We'd love to invite you to events. But I also want to make a special plug to the Phoenix Chamber. You guys have been incredible partners with us on a number of different initiatives. You have supported our work. You guys have been really invested. We should become members of the chamber. We should, and we will. We really just are very, very grateful for this opportunity. And I'm incredibly grateful to all of you that are on this for taking the time to listen, to be here. I don't see people dropping off. So it just means so much to us that you took time out of your day to come and be a part of this really important dynamic discussion.
Well, Alison, thank you. Your passion is evident. I can see why you got the call to come and lead this effort. And I will tell you, you mentioned a few programs out there. The Chamber has, through the foundation, a program called Connect to Work AZ, and we work with unemployed and underemployed folks. And so this is certainly something that we will be focusing on as well. So count us in, and we look forward to being part of the team. We'll go to Jessica.
First and foremost, the fact that all of you are here right now and participating in this conversation means a lot, because Arizona is all of our responsibility to bring this community up and to make it the best it can be. I hope that in 5 years, Arizona is the answer to your initial question of what city is doing the best at this, what state has got this figured out. I hope that's us. And I hope that that is us through every avenue that we can possibly come together and create a working relationship with each other to make a difference in this community and to be an inclusive state. So that we can end the financial bleed, and we can correct some generational wrongdoings that have happened because of the policies that have been in place for incarceration. That's my goal. That's my passion. And I can't wait to sit at the table with any one of you, no matter where you're at, no matter what you feel about it, and see what your pathway is to fixing this problem.
Well, thank you for that. And obviously it's inspirational story, the work that you're doing. All right, since we're saying fast the past, I'm gonna treat you like I normally treat folks when they come on this podcast or we do kind of events like this. First of all, what is your master's degree going to be in?
I am doing a master's of science with business leadership.
Well, I think that sounds very appropriate. All right, so we're gonna do a quick lightning round with you. Guilty pleasure. What's your guilty pleasure?
My guilty pleasure is Papago Park. There is a little ledge that very few people go to where you can see the sun set perfectly, and it is my spot.
Well, you got to be careful because Doug's on and he leads our health and wellness and he loves to do hikes. So you might see us up there. All right. So the next one. Favorite ice cream flavor.
Chocolate chip cookie dough.
All right. That was very good. That's the right answer. And then first concert.
My first concert post incarceration was Tool, and my very first concert ever in life was New Kids on the Block.
All right. See, on that bombshell, all righty, there we go. Seeing Jessica very differently now, with her New Kids fame. Thank you both. We really appreciate you spending so much time with us and obviously the work in the community. We look forward to partnering with you and to Jessica's point, to looking back in 5 years at how far we've come and the work we can do together. To those of you who joined us, thank you for your ongoing commitment to this work, not only within your businesses, but in the state of Arizona. I want to thank our sponsors as well. You're going to be getting a survey shortly. Please take some time to fill that out. So let us know how we can do better or improve or make this experience better for you. And certainly we want to make sure we're doing that for you. Otherwise, thank you all for joining us. Alison and Jessica, thank you. We look forward to reconnecting with you soon.
Thank you.
Thank
you,
you for having
everyone.
us. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Yes.
All right. Bye-bye.